I'm thanking all the organizers and sponsors for this wonderful event. I'm also thankful to everybody who came here, and also to the gentleman with Monte Melkonian's shirt. I want to start from there. And that's about optimism. Monte Melkonian, when he came to Karabakh at the worst moment of the war, and he was appointed commander of the front when half of Karabakh villages were deported by Soviet army, and dozens were killed, and Armenia was standing against one of the superpowers of the world at that time. We have forgotten about these worst times of Karabakh war. But exactly at that time, Monte Melkonian was appointed as a commander of the front line. Everybody in Karabakh were in panic, and they are leaving Karabakh. They couldn't stop people. And there was no hope that anything could be changed. So first thing he did, he gathered all the commanders, and he put the map on the wall and said, look on the borders of Nagorno-Karabakh Oblast, which was inside Soviet Azerbaijan. We cannot defend these borders anymore. So the new borders of Karabakh will be different. And he drew the borders of today's Karabakh. So what he did, he changed the imagination. He changed the problem that Armenians were trying to solve, because Armenians couldn't defend those borders at that time and later on as well. So he managed to change the problem. This is exactly what we need to do today to get rid of this despair. This is the slide from Perch. Sorry, Perch, go back. No, go back. This is your slide, right? This is the despair that we have in our souls. Of course, you know, our optimism in our souls and optimism of Vahan, who is sponsoring different tributaries of civil society, of academia, this is very important, but look on the despair. This is the despair that we are having in Armenian souls, and not only in Armenia. This despair is in every Armenian's soul now, that we are going nowhere. How can we change this picture in our souls? How can we reinterpret what is happening with us and have another border in our mind? That whatever we have had now in the last 20 years as a statehood, it is not a statehood. It's a decorative, post-colonial, post-Soviet creature. We have never had real independence yet. We need to understand this, as Kurds are understanding that tomorrow they are going to have a sovereign state, and they are doing everything to have that state. But Armenians are thinking, oh my God, what an awful state, you know. Soviet Union was better. Why? Let's go to Eurasian Union, let's go to somewhere else, let's go. And every Armenian is trying to have individual strategies of escape, because they do not believe in our communal and group thinking and possibility of communal escape. This is very important to understand, that are we agreeing on this future, that every Armenian will have an individual escape, so communally, as a nation, we do not have enough power to do? No. In the worst days of 1915, 100 years ago, sometimes people are comparing, saying, okay, look, you know, 100 years ago we had an independent republic, what happened to it? It disappeared, right? It's going to happen once again after 100 years, because we are the same nation. But go back 100 years and look on our grandfathers. the miracle that they did 100 years ago after the genocide, it was a miracle. Two empires, huge empires, Russian Empire, Turkish Empire, and in the middle, out of nowhere, we are creating a republic of 800,000 people. When, you know, there were hundreds of thousands of refugees. Hundreds of thousands of people were dying from disease and hunger. And that generation put such a ground in 2 years that for 70 years in Soviet Union, Armenia became such a strong republic inside Soviet Union despite all the problems. Because in 2 years, there was such a dedication and belief and love put into that republic. In 2 years, it continued for 70 years. Passing through all Stalinism, all the dictatorship, and all the hardships that our nation passed through the Soviet Union. Because in 2 years, there was so much love put in that country. And now compared to us, our generation, here in diaspora in Armenia, are we having the same sort of trouble as it was after genocide? No, we are living much better. There is no hunger, right? There are no diseases. Of course, there is a despair in our souls because our expectations of our statehood were not grounded, well grounded. There was nothing. There was no draft when independence started because Armenian nation had one dream, to join Karabakh to Armenia. This is how the movement started, right? Artsakh, Karabakh, շարժում, միացում, Հայաստան. And you know, for a long time it was just inside Soviet Union, people were not speaking about independence. There was no idea of independence. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, we became independent without any draft. And elite who was in charge, as Vahan was telling, the vacuum. There was a vacuum of imagination. What are we building? What are we constructing? And because of this absence of this draft, it became possible not to report back. What are they doing? This elite, what are they doing? And so the theft started and the corruption started, and because people were thinking, you know, justifying situation with the mythology, because there are so many external enemies, you know, let's wait, because it is Takavore Manuke, how we are translating this into English. The king is young, so let's wait until he will grow. And in 20 years, there is a fairy tale in Armenian, Zangi Zrangi, which is about a child, a newborn child. When he is appearing in the family, things are starting to disappear. The food is starting to disappear. After a while, other members of families are starting to disappear. And this Zangi Zrangi, this awful child, is eating everything as he's growing. So let's understand that we have a Haresh. How you're translating? Monster. We have a monster. And we are waiting until the monster will grow up. And you know what is happening now in Armenia? Publicly, for the first time, the city council of Armenia has decided, of Yerevan, sorry, has decided to erect the statue of Mikoyan, because he's one of the most famous Armenians. But he's the most famous Dahij. In 1937, there are documents where he is signing and sending letters to Stalin that, you know, there is a plan to kill 1,000 people. He is saying, no, it's not enough. We need to add 700 more. And we are erecting the statue of that person. And then all of a sudden, we are having discussions in Armenia. Intellectuals, so-called intellectuals, connected with party in power and who are members of these bodies, are saying, you know, the times are different. They were different at that time. You know, Stalin, we cannot say that Stalin was bad for Armenians. He did so good things for us. Of course there are bad things, So this justification of these awful times are creating ground for this monster to reappear in Armenia. We need to understand that this is not a, and I'm challenging now Vahan's two assumptions, that there is a way, evolutionary way, to change this monster. And the second assumption, that we have time to do that. We do not have neither one. There is no time. Because figures are awful. There is enough scientific evidence today. All of you have heard about this. I'm not going to repeat about billions of dollars, about hundreds of thousands of people living every year. We are not going to lose just the statehood. We are going to lose the presence of Armenian people on the last portion of Armenia. This is what is going to happen. Because without this perspective of future, nobody will live there, even the best professors will, if they will come to Armenia, because there is no hope, as it was said. We need to think differently. Let's have a second slide. This process is called chrysalysis. This is a process where you have a caterpillar, almost a worm, and you know, this worm is dying. But inside that worm, there is another life starting to burn, to be born. And it takes time. It takes time, but we have to look on this process differently and understand that the decorative status that we have is that worm, that caterpillar, which we have to drop off. We have to go to completely different perspective. We have to think and not only dream, but also calculate completely different future for Armenia. A future of a butterfly, which is a flying. And if you look on the circumstances of the crisis, we can understand crisis differently if we have enough will to understand what opportunities are being opened for Armenia with these major changes, with creation of multipolar world, where each of these poles will be somehow neutralizing the other and opening opportunities for Armenia. And look what is happening with Iran, with the sanctions being lifted and the door being opened. And Iran, you know, is next to us. And it needs us because it will take several years until Iran will have institutions and connections and other things to use the opportunities. Whereas diaspora and Armenia have those connections. There is no, it's a win-win situation for Armenia because there is no danger from Armenia to Iran, and Iran is a natural ally because it has problems with Azeri population. We know that. Everybody knows that, right? So, and economically, look how many opportunities are being opened, energetic projects, other projects. So, but there is one major problem. It's not Russia, sorry. I'm not going to speak anti-Russian here. It's not Russia. It's Armenian corrupted clans in Armenia which are seeking their patrons, trying to work with their patrons by all means, because there are no grounds in the country. People know that, you know, in 1 year, you know, these 50 families, it's one police operation day could be taken out. So how to do this transition? Look, there is a divide here. There is a very how you say? A gap, yes, a gap. And this is not a gap that will happen democratically. We need to understand this because the dilemma is now either Armenia is going to be a Khanate, right? And there are all grounds for that. Even symbolically, you know, Yerevan, who has been in Yerevan, You know the story of Yerevan. It was conquered by Russians in the beginning of 19th century. Before that, there was Khanate, and Khan's palace, Sardar's palace, was in the center of the city, near the Cognac buildings, today's. And there was a huge palace of Khan. You know what is now on that place? No. It was the winery. I'm not speaking about winery. Next to winery, there was the palace of the Khan. Now there are buildings called Glendale Hills. You know, Glendale Hills belong to the brother of the president of Armenia. He has no idea that, these places historically, what are they? But that shows the symbolism that they are creating a slavery system in Armenia. And you see all grounds for that. So do we agree to such future? Do we want to keep our historical homeland just for the sake of the historical homeland and have this reality as it was shown in the film? Or we as a nation in Armenia and in diaspora are ready for radical change, which we call, I'm representing here not me, but so-called the Organization of Pre-Parliament, նախախորհրդարան, and we foresee a transitionary democracy period in the life of Armenia before we will establish full democracy in Armenia, because we need to pass through that. What does it mean? Of course, we need to have elections in Armenia. And those elections will not happen in 1917 or 1918, because I'm not sure if Armenia will be at that time, if things will continue like this. But, no, I'm sorry.
No, you said 1917, you mean 2017?
2070, yes. But extraordinary elections. Now, could we have extraordinary elections today conducted by today's government? Yes, we can. But the result will be the same. Because it is a casino system, whoever plays, there is one winner. Because electoral commissions and constitutional court will stamp already ready decisions. Whoever gives any voices to whoever, doesn't matter. So how can we change the situation? It's very simple. We have to have our own electoral commissions. That means you have to do changes before the elections, not after the elections. I agree with whatever was said about institutions and elections, Kamo, I agree with that. But who is going to, where are the leverages for rebuilding institutions? Armenians have a good saying, Zuka galchitz e hotum. The fish is being rotten from head. So we need to understand that the leverages are somewhere else and have enough courage to understand that we have to come to those leverages. And it will take time. Now, the question, how we are going to do this? Let me describe in several steps. We have now a situation of shadow government. We heard about that, right? That it is informal government. All the decisions are being done somewhere else and they are being brought to parliament and decisions, there is no sense even for opposition, official opposition to go there because they can argue the best arguments, but there is a majority there which every time will stamp the decision. So this is a decorative democracy. And նախախորհրդարան is saying that to all oppositions, real opposition parties, if you don't want to legitimize today's government, get out of this system. Get out of that parliament, because your օգտակար գործողության գործակից, how you say, the accomplished, okay, is zero. Whatever you say, all the truth of the world, finally the decision is being done by them. But by your presence in the elections, in these processes of parliament, you are legitimizing them. The table has 4 legs, right? You are one of them. You are minority, but when you are getting out of it, then it is becoming really unstable. So our նախաձեռնությամբ approach is that all opposition has to unite outside of parliament, not inside parliament, because inside parliament you are still minority having no voice, a real effect on the governance. So what are the steps? Steps are following. We have to form alternative parliament. And that parliament has to get votes as contracts from citizens. They will sign contracts. It will be a sort of open referendum, not a closed referendum. So you will get the voices of people somewhere else. It's a very peaceful way of doing things. Once you'll have enough understanding and votes and trust, and this is the trust creation process, you could become a force majeure in Armenia. It will take some time, not too much time, especially given the time that we are living. All the problems connected with Karabakh and other things. These are having not only international consequences, but internal consequences also. So we have to be ready to do it very fast. And we have started that process already in Armenia. In fact, we are living in a very important year of 100th commemoration of genocide. What has it to do with the situation in Armenia today? Can you imagine 2008 events of March 1 to be repeated on April 24 of 2015 in Yerevan? What would you think after that about the government? So it is the right time to self-organize people and to be ready for radical change in Armenia. We do not have time. The last slide, please. Here is a prayer from Tagore, which I want you to look and let me read it. Let me not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless in facing them. Let me not beg for the stealing of my pain, but for the heart to conquer it. Let me not crave in anxious fear to be saved, but hope for the patience to win my freedom. Grant me that I may not be a coward, feeling your mercy in my success alone. But let me find the grasp of your hand in my failure. Rabindranath Tagore. Thank you very much.